So we're lucky to have Leah Koskinen with us as well. And of course, Marisa is here to talk about her debut novel, Good Intentions. So I did want to mention that Inscribe Independence Television is filming for us, so it's going to be available on YouTube and Spotify. And so these mics are helping with that recording, but it's not projecting in this room. So hopefully everybody can hear us. I feel like it's a good room and it projects. So before we move into the discussion, I wanted to take just a minute without Joanne or Jana's approval, because I figured that they would say no. Sorry, mostly Jana, I'm so sorry.
It's a cute picture.
So we did just have a really nice dinner at the Fed where we got a chance to chat for a little bit before we came here. And one of the things we were talking about is just what an amazing independent bookstore Joanne and Jana have brought to the community, and how fortunate we are. So 3 years ago, when Ann and I started our podcast, well, I would say 2.5 years ago, when we started our podcast, one of the things we wanted to do was just share the stories and highlight different interesting things happening around town. And it was right then, basically, that they were opening Inscribe. So we went in and we asked them, will you come on our podcast? And Joanne said, sure, and Jana said, no way. And so I wanted to play just a little clip from that podcast episode in, I think it was June or July of 2023.
Jana and I met over 25 years ago. Our two daughters were in preschool together. And by the time our daughters were in first grade, Jana and I, both with a passion for books and all things reading, we were running the book club with the moms at the school by the time the girls were in first grade. And then by the time third grade came along, we were actually running the school library. Jana and I, we've been working on making this dream come true for about 2 years. And with the kids now grown, out of the house, living their lives in different states, going to college, we thought it was time for us to, achieve the dream that we've always talked about.
So I love that story. And when I was pulling this clip, I was thinking, I wonder how many people know that story. And I know that Inscribe has turned into a tribe of local Inscribe book lovers. And so I thought I'd be sharing this thing that nobody knew. However, as we're at the Fed, ladies from the book club that they started at Cedar Crest, how many years ago? 25 years ago, we're there. So I think that that's just an amazing story, that you guys are still together, still supporting each other, and have grown it into this. So thank you for bringing this to this area and for being amazing. Whoops, I had to do a little plug for myself. So this is the Connecting Clarkston app. If you guys don't have it, it's free to download. You can find the full podcast listed in there from when Joanna and Jana were on with us, many other podcast episodes, as well as a calendar of lots of things happening locally. So after Joanne came on the podcast with us, Ann and I decided we were going to host one book club, and it happened to coincide with school starting back, so we thought it would be fun for moms to put their kids on the bus, come to Inscribe, have a mimosa, talk about a book, see the bookstore, call it good. So 2.5 years later, we're still having the book club, because Ilse and Megan, when I tried to be like, okay, moving on, they said no, and so now they help us co-host it. And I just wanted to play this cute little clip from our first book club there, our Moms and Mimosas. And then, of course, just shout out to the 11 monthly book clubs that are hosted at Inscribe. And just, again, what an amazing community, and we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
My name is Leah Koskinen, and I'm
So Leah's asked me multiple times to remove this video, but I'm not going to. And so I really appreciate her being here tonight, because although I host the podcast, I like to be the support character. I do not like to be the main person. And so thank you, Leah. So here's a little background info on Leah, who does a lot of advocacy work for skin cancer, skin safety. She's a huge reader. She's doing amazing things in the community. Like, she just did a fundraiser and built a sun pavilion at Pine Knob Elementary that we're hoping she brings to other elementary schools in the area.
stage 3 I was 24, so only a handful of years after graduating college. I had a 1-year-old and a husband, and I was just trying to figure out mom life. And then I went in for my first ever skin check. So they biopsied a spot right here over my bra strap, which you can see my big old scar now. She called a week later and said, hey, it's melanoma. We're concerned about how deep it is, and we need to get your case transferred over to University of Michigan immediately.
All right, so on to the main event. We're super happy to welcome Marisa, and I have been stressing all week about saying that correctly because I automatically want to default to Marisa, but Marisa Walz, which earlier this month, just February 3rd, was the release of her debut novel, psychological thriller, published by St. Martin's Press. Marisa joins us from Chicago, where she lives with her husband, her 2 children, and her Labradoodle. You also work at the Fed Reserve.
I do, so I thought it was really cool that we ate at the Fed tonight.
Yes, it was perfect.
I took a picture of the menu to send to all my coworkers.
So I'll let you take it from here, Leah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So for readers who are just meeting you, what do you want us to know about you outside of being an author?
I would say, well, this isn't really outside of being an author, but I have wanted to be an author since I was a very little girl. So there's really no, for me, outside of being an author, this has been like this has been my core passion since I was a little girl. And I knew I wanted to be an author, and I just really never knew how to go about doing it. So it's been a very long journey of me just trying to figure it out. I had blogs, if anybody remembers in the 90s, e-zines. I ran a couple e-zines out of my parents' basement. I've wrote for the campus newspaper. I've always been writing in some capacity. So yeah, there's really no separating me from like this label of being a writer.
Okay. So what's the first memory that you have of writing something of your own?
My earliest memory is probably when my mom, well, it was the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny brought me a diary in my Easter basket, and it was really pretty. I still have it. It's got like a rainbow on the front and had a little lock, and you could pick the lock, so it wasn't like super secure. But I would write in there, and something about writing in there and just like releasing whatever I had inside me just really clicked inside of me. And even though it was a diary, like if I wanted to make stuff up, I could make stuff up and nobody was going to say anything. And I don't know, it just unlocked something in me, and I started realizing even then, at like 7 years old, that I wanted to be a writer, and I just wanted to write. There was something so satisfying and fulfilling to me about being a writer.
Okay, that's awesome. The Easter Bunny. Okay,
Yes.
setting
Yes.
the bar high for us all. I want to, do you have that picture, Katie?
Yeah.
You posted on Instagram. You did, I loved this post. It was like a,
That's the diary.
yes. Tell me about this.
Oh, this is my first ever book signing. I have a lot of stories about things that I was reading when I was younger that maybe I shouldn't have been, and like this is my first exposure to like an actual author. He was actually an Alcatraz inmate. We were in San Francisco on a family vacation, and my parents were like, "Oh wow, so cool! Our daughter loves books. Like, let's go have her like." And I don't know if you like go back to that picture, like his arm is kind of around me in like a kind of like weird way. Like when I look back at that picture, I'm just like. But I remember being so fascinated by meeting him, and he was this author, and I was very much a reader, and I remember it just being like so cool and exciting, and it kind of stuck with me. And now it's crazy because over this last week, I've been signing books and doing what he was doing, and like who knows like how much of a role, like all these little things, like meeting that author for that first time had played
Made
a
such
role.
a big impression.
Yeah.
Who knew the Alcatraz?
Yep. Yeah.
Alcatraz and Easter bunnies.
The funny thing is when I posted that picture, I got so many people saying, "Oh, that same guy, yeah, when me and my family went to Alcatraz." So I don't know how often he was there. Because I got at least 5 different people, and I remember thinking, oh, we should have like a club, like this guy, and somebody's like, I wonder what he's doing now. And I'm like, did you see it? This was in 1991, I think. Like, do you see how
That
old he
is
is?
funny.
I don't think he's still there.
That is funny. Okay, so tell me about how many books because this is another one of the slides here, was how many books you have written prior to Good Intentions.
So Good Intentions was the 4th book I wrote. The very first book, well, I tried to write a book in my mid-20s maybe, and it was just vibes. Like I just knew I wanted like dark vibes, and I was like going through this weird girl phase, and it was just gonna be vibey. And you can't write a book off of vibes. Like, you can't run a car off of fumes. That's essentially what I was trying to do. And so it didn't really go anywhere, and I remember being disillusioned by it and just like feeling really disappointed because I knew this was like my big life dream. I tried to do it, I really wanted to do it, and it just didn't work out. But you know, I was starting off in my day job and my career, and so that kept me busy for a little while, and then I had my son, and he was my firstborn, and I will never forget this moment, and I don't know what prompted this, but he was about 2 or 3 days old, and I was driving him home from somewhere, and I looked in the back seat at him in his little like seat, and again, I don't know where this thought came from, but it was so powerful and so overwhelming. I just had this wish for him that he would find his thing and know what his thing was, and he would wake up every day with a fire in his belly, and he would go after his dream, whatever his dream was. I didn't even care. I didn't care if it was penguinology or like HVAC or like, I wanted him to just like find it, because I had always known that writing was my thing, and it hit me that like maybe I wasn't really being the best example of that. And that was like the missing piece that I needed to take like this lifelong dream and desire I had and finally just really buckle down and do it. And I was like, I don't care if it's a crappy book, I am gonna write a book. I'm gonna at least do that. And I was living in a condo in Lincoln Park in Chicago, and I had this nice walk-in closet, but it wasn't like a huge walk-in closet. It was like as big as this space up here.
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a picture of that
up
too.
there.
And I had my husband put in cheetah print carpet.
Love that.
With my Home Depot like shelving in the background. Yes, it was very classy. And that's where I wrote my very first book. And I started just a few days after having that thought in the car with my son. And even though, you know, I had a baby and everything,
Yeah.
I finally got that first book written. So long story short, to answer your question, I actually wrote 3 books before Good Intentions, 3
Okay.
full books. And Good Intentions was my 4th book.
Okay, so you always knew you wanted to be a writer. You took a break in between. You went to college. You got out in the workforce.
Yeah.
And then, so you weren't really doing much writing in between there. And then once you had that moment with your son.
Then I wrote hardly a day went by, once I had that epiphany with my son, hardly a day went by for 10 years that I was not either writing books, querying agents, researching how to get an agent, like studying the craft of writing. Like, I don't think probably a day went by in that 10 years that I was not going full throttle for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, this is a really silly question, but I do need to know. In your book, this is not a spoiler, but in your book, you talked about Rothy's or knockoff Rothy's at least 3 times.
I have nothing against fake Rothy's or Rothy's.
Well, my question was, do you have fake or real Rothy's?
I don't have fake or real Rothy's. I don't know where it came from.
I was waiting for you to tell me that you were going to be some like huge Rothy fan and you had 12 pairs in that closet.
No, sometimes I just get something in my head and then it just, and Katie, my main character, she's very obsessive kind of about everything. So that's probably why the so many mentions of it is just, she gets something in her head and it kind of sticks in there.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's no background. I just picked on Rothy's, sorry. I actually like Rothy's, I think they're cute. I just picked on
We're going to have to get you a pair.
I know. I should be wearing them, yeah.
Yeah. Without giving anything away, how would you describe Good Intentions to someone picking it up for the first time?
So I'll give you the pitch, and then I'll kind of describe like the themes and what I was going for. So Good Intentions is a psychological suspense novel about a luxury event planner who becomes obsessed with a woman she meets in a hospital waiting room, ... on the same day that she loses her twin sister. So it's a story about grief and obsession and lots of moral ambiguity. And I think people are surprised, even if they've read the book, to find out that the whole reason that I wrote this book was to really test my own and the reader's capacity for empathy. I'm really drawn to unlikable characters, which I think is a kind of funny statement because if you like them, then how unlikable are they really? But I like a more flawed protagonist, even a really, really flawed protagonist. And I like to try and find something to relate to. And here we have this character, Katie, who she definitely has flaws and she makes some bad decisions and she behaves very badly many times. And it's kind of hard to find sympathy for her, but also she's been put, well, first of all, part of this is just part of her personality and who she is. But she also is really put through the ringer. Like, she undergoes a lot. I mean, it opens with her twin sister, her closest friend, passing away very tragically and unexpectedly. And so I guess I was just trying to write a story to find out, like, if we could find it in our hearts somewhere, to find some empathy for this person who went through this horrible event.
Interesting.
Once you read the whole book, including the very last page, it makes a lot more.
Yeah.
It makes a lot more sense, but yeah. Hopefully you guys remember that when you're reading. Like, that was my purpose. It wasn't just to make an entertainingly naughty character.
Yeah, and you have a really good story that cannot be shared now. We need to wait until...
No, but if you finish the book, feel free to reach out and DM me or something. I will tell you what inspired... There was an event in my youth that I've always wanted to write a story about, to explore the questions that it left me with. But the chief question that this experience, and sorry to be so vague, but this experience left me with a lot of unanswered questions, and chief among them was, can good people do bad things? And I really wanted a book that would explore that. And so, yes, if you do read the book and you're very curious, feel free to reach out and I'll tell you exactly what happened. It's a pretty wild story.
It is a pretty wild story, and it makes a lot of, connects some good dots. Absolutely. Another big theme of the book is the twins. Is there significance to why you chose twins?
So a lot of people think when you put a twin in a story, especially an identical twin in a thriller story or something where there's a mystery to uncover, a lot of times your mind just goes to like, there's got to be some reason it's an identical twin. I bet it has something to do with like, oh, they look alike and it's really going to turn out to be her or whatever. And this doesn't like ruin the story at all. But the reason I actually made Katie and Dana twins is Katie is a very obsessive personality, and she has like a superficially wide circle of friends, but really she only has a very, very small, close inner circle of people that she like genuinely cares about and is close to. And that's a nature of her personality because she loves like so deeply and has like this very controlling influence that you really couldn't do that with a huge circle of friends.
Sure.
And so I was thinking, okay, what would make a character like Katie, who's already just kind of on the outskirts of good behavior and like with her personality, like what sort of loss would really cause her to unravel? And the idea came to me that a twin sister would be a pretty intense, and would also be very isolating, because how many people, you might know what it feels like to lose somebody you love. You might feel like, you know, you might have experience with having lost a close family member or even a sibling, but not a lot of people are even twins. So like, what would that be like? I think there's a line in the book about losing a literal piece of yourself because they share the same exact DNA.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective, because from the reader point of view, I immediately went to like, oh, you're a twin, you have twin experience in your family, or there's twins in the bloodline, or, you know, something. So
I guess I did like take away one red herring for you, but there's plenty of other ones.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write Good Intentions?
It's such a complicated answer because everybody thinks of writing a book as like sitting down at the typewriter and writing a book. There's so much thought that goes into writing. Like I think about my books, and I think most writers do, more than I actually write the book. So we'll probably get to this later, the inspiration for the story. But I planned it all in my head pretty much in one night, and then I thought about it for months and months because I really wanted to get this book right because it was answering a deeply personal question for me. So I thought about it for months and months until I could play the whole thing like a movie in my head. And then once I had that, probably took me like a day and a half to like plot it all out on paper. Wow. And then it only took me like 3 weeks to write a whole first draft. But then comes like the editing, and my weakest point, which I'm discovering now as I'm writing book 2 and getting feedback from my editor, is there's lots of like plot holes in my story because like in my head it all makes sense, but I don't necessarily always get all the details that the reader needs to know down on the paper because I've watched the movie so many times in my head that I take for granted what you all don't know. So that's where my agent and editor really come in handy, is pointing all of that out to me.
I'm impressed that you could keep all of that in your head.
Oh, I totally can. When I'm in like the throes of a new book, it's kind of all I think about, which sounds really bad, but like I'll be driving and I'll be thinking about it. I'll be reading another book and I'll be thinking about it. I can't pay attention to other movies that like we're watching family movie night or whatever. I'm like thinking of my book in my head. Like I play it so many times that it's not hard at all to like.
And you think that process works better for you than writing it down and kind of like mapping it out?
No, I have to do both.
Okay.
I definitely have to do both, but first I have to like know it all in my head before I start writing, because once I start writing, I get too excited and then I start going too far. And so I've just learned that I can't start the actual writing piece, even if I'm just plotting it out and getting it down on paper, until I have it all straight in my head.
Okay.
It helps me to like not lose those pieces that create those big plot holes. Because those are so painful to go back and fix. It really makes a mess of everything.
And how do you do this with balancing mom life?
there is no balance. Yeah, that's probably like the question I get the most about like writing life. There really is no balance. When my day job, so I'm a banker, and my day job, I have this very analytical side, which I kind of need fed too. Like I need to fulfill both sides. Because I'm like a Virgo, I'm type A, like I really like to have things organized and be able to like check clean tasks off the list that like it's done. And then I've got this other very creative side that I have to fulfill too. But especially when I'm writing a first draft, I am so into it. It's like I'm obsessed with it. And I've talked to so many writers who are the same way. It's like you're just obsessed with it and you're enthralled by it. And it's really hard to think of other things, and it's hard to turn back on that other side of your brain. So stuff that I would never normally like mess up, like for example, my daughter's first day of school, we took pictures outside her school, and I was like, why is nobody else out here taking pictures? We go inside the school, like the front like vestibule door is locked, and I was like, oh my gosh, like get your stuff together, like what is going on? I'm like knocking on the door, I'm like, she's here, it's her first day of school. And I was like, why? And they come out and they're like, school doesn't start till next week. And I'm like, okay, well at least I wasn't like a week late.
Yeah.
But, like that is the sort of stuff that like the old me before I started writing would have been like, oh my God, what a terrible mother. I would never, like, I used to have, like, all my SHIT together, but when I'm writing, like, there's just no, like, I totally slip into that, like, creative mindset, and it's really hard for me to, like, function and do the other things that I need to do. So it's really not a balance, and when I'm doing really well with the book stuff, it feels like my family and work life do suffer, and then when I'm doing well with the other stuff, it's very hard for me to like be creative and write the sort of book I want to write. So there's no balance. It's just kind of like turning one off and turning the other one on, and then when that one goes too long, then you go back to the other one. So I guess that's kind of balanced, but it doesn't feel balanced.
Yeah, I think all the moms in this room could relate to that, right? This is
it's a universal problem.
Yes. What has been the most surreal part of releasing your first book?
It's kind of the little things. So, well, I guess this isn't little, but like seeing my books in actual bookstores. When I saw my book in the airport, that was, I don't know, it's such a weird thing, like something that maybe you don't necessarily think about, but it's like, oh, I texted my husband, I'm like, I really arrived. Like, I'm in O'Hare at Terminal 1, Gate E, whatever. That was pretty cool. It's just like a lot of little different things that have been, like, it's the things that I don't think I thought about, like another writer asking me to blurb her book. Like, little things, cool. Like, you don't think about that. You think about, oh, maybe I'll hit the New York Times bestseller list one day, or it'll be so fun to go on tour, and it is. But that's the stuff, like, you prepare for. It's, like, the little unexpected things that crop up that are really cool.
Yeah.
When we were at dinner, it was really interesting just to hear your insight on the industry. And one of the things you had mentioned, and I know we all have the hard copy, but with the audio version, I know we were talking about the person that was hired to do that. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so the audio book, so Brittany Presley is the narrator, if anybody reads audio books. She is absolutely amazing. She does a ton of the thrillers, and that was another thing that was kind of surreal that I didn't really ever think about. I kind of had a feeling there would be an audio book just because of the type of deal I got, and I thought, oh, that'll be so cool, even though I don't listen to audio books because I just get too distracted. I have tried turning the speed up. It just doesn't help me. Like, I just end up drifting away. But I was very excited for my audio book, and I found out that they were going to send me audition tapes. They weren't really tapes.
Recordings.
Yeah. But they sent me the audition tapes, and I got to hear two that they had narrowed it down to. And they were both really good, but when I heard Brittany's voice, I was like, oh yes, hello, Katie. Like, and she just like came to life for me, and it was such a cool, surreal experience. getting to hear somebody else bring it to life in that way.
Yeah, and you said a lot of times authors don't get to pick who does their recording, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I think a lot of times they do, but like a lot of times they don't.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
special that you got to pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's really special is I got to keep my title. That is super uncommon in publishing. Usually they'll change it. The sales and marketing team will say, oh, it sounds too much like this book that didn't do well, or it sounds too much like this book that did do well, or we think it would be more appealing or would look better on the cover if it were, like, you almost never get to keep your title. And I was so happy that they kept this title because it perfectly encapsulates. I wasn't really trying to have a message with this book, but I was trying to ask a question. I wanted to leave the reader with a specific question, and that was, can good people do bad things? And so it was really important to me that the title stayed, and nobody ever questioned it, and so I never asked anybody because I didn't want to, like, I'm like, maybe it slipped through the cracks and they didn't like it, but they forgot to change it, so I just never brought it up.
I wanted to ask too, like, with the cover of the book, were you involved with creating that? How does that process usually work? How did it work for you?
Well, so how it worked for me, which I think is pretty common, is my editor sent me an email and she just asked if I had any ideas for the cover or if there was anything I didn't want to see on it. And I had all sorts of ideas, but I was like, you guys know what you're doing, so like you just design something that you think is cool. My only request is that there's no photographs or people on the cover. Because I know, like, a cover, like, there's a whole science behind cover design. And I know when I'm looking for covers, like, the books that I like the most usually have some sort of art on the cover versus, like, people. Like, I don't know what the correlation is. Maybe it's all in my head. But that was important to me. And so then they sent me almost exactly this cover that you see up here, except they were perfect roses. Like, exactly how you would think of, like, a rose. And I don't even think these are roses. I don't know what they are. And I was like, I fell in love with it. I was so excited. I showed all my friends and family. And then 2 weeks later, my editor emailed me and she's like, oh, we have a copyright issue with that image.
Oh.
And I was devastated. And she's like, but we've got something that we think is even better. And I was like, yeah, right, because that one was perfect. And then she sent me this one. And she's like, what do you think? And I was like, I think I like it better, but I don't know if I'm just trying to talk myself into it now. So, and I had such mixed feelings, and I thought about it for a few days, and now I totally love this cover. Yeah. And it has a lot of meaning once you read the book. Lots of symbolism in the cover, so I was really happy with it.
Yeah, I didn't even catch on the flower, the white and the red, and them being the different directions.
I also didn't think
one's
of the symbolism.
underground.
Yeah, I just thought I really
one's
liked this
underground
cover.
and one's
Yeah.
Very cool. What's something about publishing your first book that nobody warned you about? What was the most shocking thing?
The most surprising thing actually was a good thing, and that's the people. I had actually heard, so when you're an aspiring writer, you read all the forums about what's it going to be like when I am a writer, and what do I have to know, and all of that, and everybody warned you that publishers are horrible people, and they only care about business, and they're just so nasty, and like your friends and family won't come to your events, and they probably won't even read your books, and the other the other authors are like super catty and jealous and cliquey and stuff like that. None of that has turned out to be true. My favorite thing and most surprising thing with this whole publishing journey is the people, like, at every level of the industry and how amazing they are. So, like, my editor, yes, she's very much like a business person, and like she didn't buy the book just because, like, it warmed her heart. Like, she thought it was going to make money, so she bought the book. But she's been super, like, careful to, like, make this a positive experience for me, and everybody on my team at St. Martin's Press has been that same way, and my family and friends didn't disappoint me either. Like, I've had people at every stop that I know on my tour so far, and they pre-ordered my books, and almost everybody I know read my book before it even came out. Like, they passed around ARCs, which are early copies of the book, and then too, just the other authors, so when you're writing a book and you're not published, it's a super lonely process, because like it's just you and a computer, and you're hoping that one day you're going to be accepted in through those golden doors. And but it's super lonely, and then when you do have a deal, it's like all of a sudden like all these other doors open up for you. And I have found the other authors, at least in my community, to be super welcoming. It's almost like you're like instant best friends when you meet each other. And like the booksellers and book influencers too, like they're just, it's the most amazing, tight-knit, supportive community of people you could ever ask for.
Very cool. Are you allowed to share some of the authors that you have become friends with?
Sure, I can brag about my friends. So Geneva Rose was actually my first friend. And so how that happened was, so Geneva Rose is a big thriller author, and I kind of caught her like right before she became really big. And now she's like a big personality on Instagram. Her and her husband Drew they're just hilarious. If you don't follow them, even if you don't read thrillers or whatever, follow Geneva Rose. She's hilarious.
She is.
And I read in her acknowledgments of The Perfect Marriage that she had just moved to Chicago, and I was like, oh, cool. I'll just like, this was way before I had a book deal. And I was like, I'll ask her if she'll be my mentor. Like, that's what I need. I need a mentor. And she lives in Chicago, so I DM'd her, and yeah, we formed a friendship from there. We went out for drinks, and
amazing.
She did become my mentor, but kind of more in like she would tell me like the publishing gossip, and like, and she would tell me what to do when I got to the point where I had to leave my last agents. She's the one that gave me the push to leave them and go to my new agent, which obviously completely changed my career for the better. So she was my first friend, but since then, Mary Kubica and May Cobb and Charlie Donnelly, and I just met Christy Clancy, who she just moved to Chicago recently. But yeah, like everybody's super welcoming once you get past.
Once you get in those gold doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess maybe when people talk about it being cliquey, like that's what they mean. But I find it to be an extremely welcoming community.
And Geneva Rose is as funny as she appears to be.
Oh, she's exactly the same. Like, she's not putting on an act on her Instagram. She's super dry, very funny, very straightforward. Yeah.
Love that. Do you already know what kind of story that you're going to be writing next?
So I've already written it and rewritten it 3 times for my editor. It started, if anybody wants this idea, because I thought it was really cool, but like it was just, I am incapable of telling this story because I am not a horror lover or reader or writer. So I don't know why I tried to write this, but I tried to do a millennial retelling of Misery. Because right? It's a good idea. I was unable to write it, and do it justice, because that's just not my genre at all. But like that idea that I had has evolved. So it's still about a writer. There's still like a kind of obsessed like fan element to it, but it's not misery based at all anymore. But it's really come a long way, and I like how it's going. But that has been super, super painful to write. And I just gave, on my launch day last week, I just turned in the most recent draft to my agent, and she had really good feedback. And once I implement these next changes, I'm pretty confident in sending it off to my editor and being done with this one, which is great because I'm already really excited about my 3rd book, which is, the 2nd book is under contract, so it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be this story because like I said, my editor's been giving a lot of feedback on it. But I'm so ready for like my 3rd story already. I have it like all in my head, playing in that movie reel in my head. So
you are ahead of the game.
I got to get it out.
Yeah. How does it feel when you get the feedback back and they're like, no, you need to rewrite? I think you mentioned earlier, like 80% of it.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I mean, you just have to expect there's always going to be several rounds of big edits no matter what. Like, no matter how far you get in this industry, like there's just always going to be stuff that you'll miss in ways that somebody else can make it better. And that's fine. You have to have really thick skin. And they don't sugarcoat the feedback at all. They're like, this isn't working. Like that's because they don't have time to like be nice about it. They need you to know that it's not working. So I've developed pretty thick skin about it, but it does pain me because not to keep talking about how I'm a Virgo, but like Virgos are very much like they want to get it right. They want people to be like proud of them and impressed with like their work, and they put so much hard work into it, and so it's like a little bit like when they do tell you, hey, this isn't absolutely perfect the first time you did it. It's kind of devastating.
I'm sure. And then to have it happen again.
Yeah, but I'm gonna keep trying. One of these days, I'm gonna have a near perfect first draft.
It's a great goal.
I really
love
hate
that goal for you.
developmental edits. Yes, thank you.
What time are we good to do?
Yeah.
We're ready for Q&A.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, audience, you guys are up. I'm coming.
I just wonder how difficult it is to come up with ideas when they give you the feedback. Like, how do you even go in a different direction or change the way they want you to?
That's really hard, and I've come up with a few good techniques that work for me. And one of them is to talk it all through with them, ask my questions in like an actual phone conversation. Try and do a little brainstorming with them because sometimes they have some really good ideas, or it'll at least get me thinking more. But one of the most effective things, which is really hard because I just want to like start working on it and start fixing it right away, but one of the most effective things I have found is to not touch it after that conversation for a little bit and not even think about it at all. And it's so hard to do, but if I wait and then come back to it after a couple of weeks, I find my mind's clearer and I can look at it with fresh perspective. But like I also have found this isn't something like I'll chip away at this and do like 15 minutes. Like, no, I need to like know the kids are going to be out of the house for the next 3 hours, and I can sit and just think. And that's so hard to do because I'm a very productive person. I want to have something to show for it. So to just like sit there and give myself the luxury of just sitting there and thinking and not even putting anything on paper it's really hard for me personally to do, but that's what I found works best.
I think that would be really hard. You got it in your head, you got who we all said,
Yeah.
and now you have to just.
And you just really want to fix it. And like just sitting there thinking about it is not like, it feels like it's not getting you there any closer, but I have found it to be the most helpful for me.
Who else has a question? Do you want to use this microphone?
You said that you're a banker, so is that the schooling you went to was to do that, or did you have education like college where you took writing classes or learned how to write? Seems very different.
It was a hodgepodge. So I always knew I wanted to be a writer. So like right when I got to college, my mom was like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I don't know. As soon as I went there, I didn't tell her. I went and I declared my double major as journalism and communications. And when she found out about it, I forget how. They must have sent something home and they were paying for my college. And she was like, you're not going to make any money doing that, and I'm not paying for you to go to college to just be like struggling. She's like, what are you going to do with that? Like, are you going to write for like a newspaper or something? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Like, that sounds kind of fun, actually. She's like, no, you need to do something where you're going to have some job security. So that like really kind of like disillusioned me, but at the same time, looking back on it in hindsight, like having a stable job now has given me the comfort and the stability that I need in order to like pursue this like kind of on the side and feel safe. Because I mean, even if you have a really successful book, you don't really make a lot of money. So so that's what I declared at first, and then I went undeclared for like a little while, like trying to figure it out. And I finally told my mom, I'm like, well, what do you think I should do? And she's like, well, I think you should be some sort of doctor. And I was like, oh, okay. And I thought about it some more, and I was like, well, optometry seems like something I literally pulled it out of a hat, and then I looked, and there were like pre-optometry classes in my undergrad, so I did that. I even got a job at Lens Crafters for 2 years. I applied to Illinois College of Optometry, and I didn't get in, and there were like 20 other schools I could have applied to if I was serious, but I was like, eh. And then that vague, ambiguous experience that I told you about that I had that inspired Good Intentions occurred. And I had like this existential crisis where I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know what I want to be, but I'm just going to finish up with my liberal arts degree, and that's what I did. And then I was like, I think business is kind of interesting. So I got my MBA. And then when I was in MBA school, I was like, the Fed sounds kind of cool, and there's one right down the street, like in Chicago here. And so, like, honestly, like, that's how it kind of like came together. Like, there was no passion on the banking side of the, but like I do like that work. It like fulfills that very analytical side of me that likes like the structure and the black and white answers, I guess.
Who else has a question? Do you want the microphone, Natalie?
What were your other books about prior to Good Intentions? Will you share any of the genres or?
So I haven't thought about this for a long time, but that diary that they showed up on the screen, the very first one was, I guess it would have been classified as YA if I actually tried to publish it. It was about 2 girls that were friends, and one of them dies, and the other one tries to solve her best friend's murder. And my primary concern with writing my first book was having a good, strong voice. And I had my childhood diary. So I actually pulled stuff out of it. I was a character. I should read from my childhood diary because, like, it's the most mundane stuff. Like, what flavor ice cream I had for dessert, what outfit I wore. And I had, in my diary, I had the nerve to, like, talk kind of snotty about like some of the like other clothes other people were wearing to school, whereas I'm at the same time on the same page I'm describing the outfit I wore, my turquoise stirrup pants. Do people remember the stirrup pants with wooden parrot dangly earrings? I remember those earrings. They were these wooden parrots, and they were like rainbow colored, and they were huge. And I'm like talking about other people's clothes, but anyway. Yeah, so that was the first one, and then the second one was like a sorority thriller, like there's an initiation ritual, and then it comes back to haunt them years later. And then the one right before Good Intentions was, actually I kind of like this one and may revisit it one day. It's about a group of 4 girls. It's like a dual timeline. It's a coming of age story. They grow up in a small town in Indiana, and they look across Lake Michigan and see the glittering lights of Chicago, and they want to go there one day together and like make a life for themselves in Chicago. And they end up doing it, and they become luxury house sitters. And then one day in their like late 20s, I think they were at one of these fancy houses that they house sit for. One of them either goes missing and there's like blood there, or just dies and the body's there. I can't remember which. I think I wrote a couple versions of it, but yeah. And then they try and figure out what happened to their friend, and it like pulls back all this stuff from the past. So I think I might revisit that one day. I liked that one.
I will be looking for those journal entries on Instagram.
I
You
should
should
post
share
them.
a few of those. Yeah. Who else has a question? Go ahead.
So I've seen other author interviews that some authors, since becoming an author, they feel like reading for them isn't the same or not as enjoyable. Has reading changed for you since you became an author?
Yeah, so I think we talked about this at dinner, right? And it hasn't ruined reading for me, but it definitely has changed. It's not purely for my enjoyment anymore. I mean, I definitely do enjoy it, but once I start really enjoying a book, I can't just like appreciate it and linger in it. I start thinking, I have to know, like, why am I enjoying this book so much? Like, what is it, and how do I take that information and like use it to make myself a better writer? Like, I have to figure it out, which can be super distracting, and so it makes what's supposed to be a really relaxing, letting go activity, it kind of like turns it into work a little bit sometimes, but I still really do enjoy reading.
Good question.
So do you have any favorite parts of your book? Like things that you really love?
So I have, in this book, I have a character that I really love. Her name is Maura, and she's the grief counselor in this story, and I love her because she was such a surprise for me, and in fact, she ends up having a bigger role in the story than I originally planned for her, because so many early readers and my editor were like, I love this Maura character. We need to like pull more of her out. So yeah, her scenes are some of my favorites. She's just very funny and I think just very authentic. And like, I think reading her, like everybody can like pinpoint somebody in their life who's kind of like a Maura. So yeah, I would say she's one of my favorite parts of the book. I also really like the beginning and the end. So I've come up with a system now, and I always write the first chapter, and then I write the last chapter, and then I fill it all in. And not necessarily in chronological order, which I used to have to do, like chapter 1, 2, 3, and I would save the end for the end because it's the end. But now I found I really like to write the first one, and then the last one, and then figure out how to get there.
Go ahead.
When you're writing a story, you have mentioned, you see the movie in your head, and then you go and you write it. Are you saying like that's as simple as your process is, or you're a very systematic?
No, that's just step one.
Okay.
Yep. That's like step 1A. Yeah.
Just like the process, like storyboarding all these different characters. Or you mentioned you start with the beginning and the end. Like, what does that whole process kind of look like?
Yeah.
The more detailed.
It's definitely a lot of thinking first, and I see, like, obviously I don't know every single scene that I'm gonna write, but I have to know like the important scenes, and I have to know the beginning, and the end is super important for me whenever I'm reading any book. And it doesn't have to have a big twist for me. I like it to, but it just has to like in some way be surprising or fresh at the end for me. And so I have to figure that out first, and then everything that comes in between, and then I will start writing it out, capturing all my ideas for scenes, and then I'm not as strict about this as I used to be, but there's a method of screenwriting and novel writing called Save the Cat. And like every successful movie ever, they say like follows this formula, and they give all these examples. And there's certain elements that have to happen in a story. And I don't really follow the template quite as closely as I used to, but like the key like components of that are now in my head. And so I will go through and look for that and be like, oh, do I have this turning point here? Do I have the hint of death in approximately this spot here? And if I don't have those key things, then I'll flesh those out a little more.
You mentioned you were also an avid reader. What kind of genres are you actually reading?
So I mostly read in my genre, which is not necessarily thriller, but more psychological suspense. So think of suspense more as like internal, and thriller more as like external, like things happening, and like suspense is more like what's going to happen or why is this happening. So I read tons of psychological suspense, and then also book club fiction. And I really like, whether I'm writing or reading, if I can get like a combination of both of those. That's really my sweet spot. And so right now I'm actually reading a kind of older one. I guess we determined it wasn't really that long ago. It's called Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukavka. And I would definitely classify that as that sweet spot of suspense and book club fiction. It's really well written. And I'm about halfway through, but I'm really liking it.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
What kind of research, or how do you go about doing research? Do you have to like network with different professionals, or do you get like groups of people that you can reach out to later? How does that work?
I almost always just use Google, but every once in a while, like Google either cannot give me what I want, or I hit like this wall. I don't know what you want to call it, but a lot of the stuff that I like want to look up, it's like Google's like, or Google or ChatGPT will be like, I can't tell you that because I'm worried about like your personal safety or the safety of people around you, like because I'm looking up some really crazy stuff. So one of my favorite like moments of like researching a book ever was when this was like before Twitter went like downhill, and I went on the Twitter writing community and I said, guys, I have a problem. This was for the house sitter book when they found the girl's body. This girl was her friend, mind you, and this is part of why this book never really went anywhere, because I see the problem now. So they find their friend's body and they're very sad because they love their friend, but at the same time, it's going to look bad on them, so they've got to like cover this up and they've got to find something to do with her body. And the house that they're staying in is owned by a famous chef, so he's got all this cool equipment in his, and people know where this is going. So I'm like, okay, how can they get rid of this body? Well, the chef was married to like an artist who had a kiln in the basement, so like maybe I could do that. But I was like, something with like the chef might be kind of cool, and I was like, what about a meat grinder? And so I couldn't get anywhere with my like research. Like Google was just not like helping me the way I needed it to. So I posted a question about, guys, like in the thriller writer community on Twitter. I was like, guys, do you think that I could plausibly get rid of a body using a meat grinder? Like, would I just like, is there a big enough one? Is there a heavy duty enough one? I screenshot, and I still have these screenshots to this day. They showed up. They knew their stuff. They were like, and they were getting into arguments with each other, and they were like, no way, dude, it would never work because the bone marrow would gum up the whatever mechanism and they knew like way too much. And they were like, if you really wanted to do this, first you would have to soak the body in this sort of like acid bleach mixture for like 2 weeks, and then like it was crazy. It was kind of scary, but also I was like, wow, I am so thankful for this this community.
Do you see your book becoming a movie? And if so,
Oh, yes.
who are Hollywood actresses be?
Oh, okay, so I actually had to send a list of actresses to my film agent. So I do have film agents for this, and they are trying to sell the film options for it. The thing about this book, though, the feedback that they've been getting from movie studios is that one of the best things, and I'm not saying this is what they said, one of the best things about the book is how it's written. And so like sometimes that can be really hard to translate onto the screen. And it's also super interior. It's almost claustrophobic, like, because you are in this one character's most intimate thoughts throughout the entire book. That's really hard to translate onto screen unless you have a really, really good screenwriter. So what my film agents are trying to do now is to go out to screenwriters and see if they can get a good screenwriter to sign on, and then go back out to actors, actresses, and movie studios. I'm trying to remember the name of my top actress that I sent to them. She would be perfect for it, and I can't remember right now. But maybe I'll remember, and then I'll tell you. But yeah, I had to send a list to them because they go out to like all sorts of, like, they just need to get like one big person to latch onto it, and then they can usually like attract, like, so if they get like an actress, then they can go out to producers and say, hey, we've got this actress on board. Or if they get the studio on board, then that's enticing for like the actress. So they just need one to kind of get the ball rolling. So.
Anybody else?
So I know you said you were talking to your husband as you were going through the airport and you saw your book. Do do you like scope out the bookstores and maybe slide in and like grab a couple of your books? You know, or like see what everybody else is looking at?
I do keep an eye out for bookstores, or I will like Google bookstores like when I'm going to like a different town. And granted, it's only been 2 weeks that it's been out, but I will stop in to any local bookstores and ask if I can sign them. So Geneva Rose got me concerned, like, cause she does this like thing on Instagram where she's like sneaky and she signs them, and like she's like, okay, nobody saw me at this Target, and like, so I was like, oh, is it like a bad thing? Do they not want you to do that? Can you not return the books like then if they don't sell? Like, so I've been like going around asking everybody. Turns out it's totally okay.
It's totally okay.
It's totally okay to sign the books.
It's absolutely okay.
They don't get mad. They don't get mad.
Welcome to come in and sign their book.
Yes. Geneva's like setting a bad precedent. Yes.
We'll watch for her to arrive.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite author that whatever they're going to write, you know for sure you're picking up and you'll be reading it?
Ashley Audrain. So we didn't actually get to this, but like the night I finished The Push by Ashley Audrain, I was so inspired that I stayed up the entire night plotting good intentions in my head. And I wanted to write a book that made readers feel the way The Push made me feel, which was emotionally devastated. So some fun light reading for everybody.
I think there was one last question.
Yeah.
You talked about like the moral ambiguity of the book. Did you worry or second guess like anything that you were putting in the book, like what your coworkers at the Fed would think of you? Is this really your personality that you're putting into this book, or?
Only a little bit. So I think that held me back before in previous books I'd written, and for this one, like I had a clear vision for this book, and I knew it was going to be a little like provocative. So but that's what I wanted the book to be, and so I knew I couldn't hold back. So when I would write it, I would pretend like I was only writing it for myself and nobody was ever going to see it. Because when I started thinking like, oh, my grandma might read this, my dad's gonna read it, and my dad did read it, and there's a scene in there that I'm like, just don't tell me. Like, he was reading the book in front of me, and I'm like, looks like he's getting close to that scene. Like, I just don't want him to be like around. I didn't worry too much about the people at the Fed, like maybe a tiny bit. You know what I really worried about was our parent friends. I was like, I just don't want like our kids' parents to read the book and be like, you know, maybe we shouldn't let the kids go over to the Walz house anymore. But no, they've all been like super supportive, and like they've read it and they're like, oh no, we don't care.
I think that's a wrap. So you want to close with just a thank you, and then I'm going to say a few words at the end.
My close was to have you say thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Marisa, for joining us this evening. I know this has been a whirlwind 2 weeks for you, right?
Yes, and I will say tonight is especially special for me because I have other events planned, but I had like a 2-week tour, and this is my last night, and I found out this morning that I'm a USA Today bestseller, and this is my first book, and so, yes, it was a super special way to end my tour, my first ever tour, so.
Congratulations.
Yes,
And having read the book, it's well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Very good. And thank you all for coming. I want to tell you about a couple more author events that we have coming up this year. On April 8th, we have James McCommons coming in. He's a professor emeritus from Northern Michigan University, and he has written a nonfiction book about a grassroots attempt, and a successful one at that, centuries ago when the passenger pigeon ended up on the extinct list. There was a group of people, hunters, conservationists, people in government, presidents, as well as like local birding societies, even women of society that wore feathers in their hats and everything. They had gathered together and started this grassroots effort of trying to protect the bird population because they were being hunted to extinction, whether it was for food or just for the reasons of, you know, their pretty feathers that everybody wanted to wear. So James has written a nonfiction book. It's called The Feather Wars, and he will be here on April 8th. If you follow us on social media, if you don't, you should. I say that. You'll see the postings are available there. He'll be right here in this LGI room here at Clarkston High School. A portion of every single one of our book sales is going to go to the Clarkston Backyard Birders Organization, as well as the Oakland County Audubon Society. So we're giving back a portion of that money to those two societies that are very much involved in the community and nature, conservation. If you don't know about the Clarkston Backyard Birders, they meet every month at Wint, at, that would be Independence Oaks? Yeah, Independence Oaks, the Wint Nature Center. And also the Oakland Audubon Society meets in Auburn Hills. So great group of people. You might want to get involved with them. But make sure you watch our social media for April 8th, and that's James McCommon. And the name of the book is called The Feather Wars. The next event I want to tell you about is actually on May 16th, which is a Saturday in May. We have booked Brady Lodge. If you guys are familiar with Brady Lodge at Bay Court, it is the old Boy Scout camp there, and it's a huge building. It's got a turret, and it's got these arched, you know, openings. See, everybody's nodding their heads. Yeah, you just don't know it. Called Brady Lodge, rather. So we booked that, and we're going to have an author festival. It's our annual, first inaugural author festival. We should have probably about 30 authors there. We'll have bookish vendors there. And it's an all-day event. You can meet the authors, talk about their books, purchase their books there. You can pre-order the books through Inscribe. And you have the opportunity for a one-on-one conversation, get your book signed. We're also going to have discussion panels where we're going to take a few authors, and we have a separate room for them where there will be a more intimate conversation where they'll be interviewed, and you've got a Q&A conversation with them. So each, probably about every half hour during the day, we'll have this discussion panels with various authors. But the rest of the time, it's free to walk around and enjoy the conversation, get books signed. And I think it'll be exciting. Hopefully, if it's a successful event, we'll have it every year. But again, we expect to get probably between 30 and 40 authors out there. And you'll recognize a lot of the names that we've got coming in.